Hello everybody, it is Ebontis, and today we're going to be doing a beginner's guide for Hell Is Us. And in here, what I've got is probably about 20-ish or so, 25 minutes or so of tips, some basics, going through systems, upgrading, combat, weapons, glyphs, that type of stuff. So you can understand the game, but I'm not going to spoil anything. I don't want to spoil puzzles, spoilers, story, anything like that. There is a little later in the game, in this video, where I have some longer walkthroughs. Timestamps will be all throughout, so don't worry. And I will give you a massive spoiler warning before we get to the later section. Those are going to be an example of a good deed. Good deed is doing something for someone in this world. And that first one is an item you find. I actually show who you give it to, just so you can kind of see an example of how that transpires, how the trade an item to a person who may need it works, just so you can get an idea of how to think about some of the items you may pick up and, why you would be taking the notes that you have or what you might be doing. The other two are going to be pieces of defensive gear. As this is a beginner's guide, there are two pieces of defensive gear in the very beginning section of the game, like the very beginning zone before you travel, that are going to give you a boost to your endurance, which is basically a boost to your health. Having 25% more health before you start exploring this massive zone, it's going to help you out. You can watch those or you can skip them entirely. Either way, you'll see a big warning, timestamps will be there with spoiler warnings, all of that stuff should be covered. So if you're new to Hell Is Us, you're intrigued by the idea of puzzles and action combined, I had a great time in the game, but hopefully this video will help you get started, and all that out of the way, let's jump in. So when you do the opening quest, you're going to talk to the soldier who's going to ask you for the med kit, you run up in the hill, you find it up there. Also, if you check out later in the video, there's something else you should probably find up there, but if you want to avoid spoilers and find it yourself, that's totally fine. But when you come back, this is how you're going to interact with most of your people who you might need to trade something with for either a good deed, a mystery, investigation, whatever it may be. You can talk to them over and over, but you actually have to trade with them to give them the item they need. So give him the med kit.
Good. You got the med kit. Okay. You see that ladder over there? Climb it to the top. Take this. You'll need it to open the door. You'll figure it out.
So now we got an investigation item. And that's how some of this stuff will progress. So the med kit was removed. I've got a new item in my inventory. If I go in my inventory, now I can even check what the new stuff is. So if I check my investigation items, now I've got this ancient mechanism from the dude. That's the idea, is you'll be trading and talking with a lot of individuals, you'll be figuring some stuff out on your own, but anytime you might have something somebody might need for any number of reasons, good deeds, mysteries, it's that trade button that's going to be how you do it, because I could sit here and talk to him until he's blue in the face, and there's no prompt to give him the item. You have to trade with him. Alright, for your pickups, you've got a couple colors of these little dots that'll tell you there's something to pick up. Green is going to be gear, so green is going to be something as you can see, a glyph, defensive gear, a relic, or even a weapon. So green is going to be some type of equipable gear. White is usually going to be miscellaneous. I've seen miscellaneous paired with exploration or investigate items, which are yellow, but white by itself typically is going to more often than not be some kind of lore piece. Not anything really used to solve a puzzle, but if you read it, you kind of get some history about, say, this is the Queen and the Ark of Spire. Usually white is going to be more general information. Maybe it's a note from soldiers kind of saying what they did, or as you can see here, a lore piece. But the white pickups are usually miscellaneous by themselves. If a miscellaneous comes with another color, you're probably getting more than one item. Alright, so red dots for pickup items are going to be typically your consumables. So that's going to be shards, and shards as well. You might get a consumable over here that's going to be something like a basic meal kit, or a heal kit, or a stamina kit. Any of those are going to be kind of your red pickups. They're all consumables. They might be drone cooldowns. They might be limbic energy refills. That's the gist of most of your consumables. But if you see a red dot, it's just one of those pickups. So if it's a hard one to get to, maybe not a big worry if you got plenty of stuff. All right, so the final pickup color is going to be yellow. The red was consumables, green is gear, white typically miscellaneous, and yellow might have miscellaneous with it. But if you come over here and pick this up, this, for example, is an exploration item. So this is something usable for a puzzle, a clue. This is a very specific system that you'll understand as you go through. But If you see a yellow icon, those are ones worth going out of your way and exploring for, because they have a link to some puzzle, mystery, something to solve. So they are definitely worth going for, as opposed to a red or just another health kit or something. Those you could probably skip. But if you see a yellow dot, find your way to get to it, because I promise you it's worth it. I'm not going to show you where this is at. You can find it on your own. Alright, so every so often you're going to pick up some items that are going to be research items. Now, I told you I'm not going to spoil anything for you. Research items are still a good thing to pick up, so you're going to want to just remember that, like, if you got a research item, it has a specific use. You'll figure out what it is later. But I will tell you, exploring and finding as many of these as possible is going to be a benefit, because I think if you want 100% everything, you're going to want to find them all. So research items, while they don't specifically tie into an investigation or a puzzle code or anything like that, for one, they typically look pretty cool, and then two, also they're going to be part of a bigger thing that you'll get to later on. So research items, when you see them, they have the little white icon on the ground, so they're worth getting. And I know I mentioned the white icons might be like miscellaneous, but the research items are a little more than miscellaneous. They're something bigger, so don't skip the white dots if you can. Find those pickups too. This is just a small tip, but there's fall damage. Like, I could technically jump off of this little ledge and fall down, but it's not necessary. Sometimes there's a ladder or two that can be hard to find, but they're usually there. You just might have to get the right angle for them. I've fallen a decent distance and lost a pretty good chunk of health, but if you can find the ladder, it's usually worth it. You can slide down if you just do the sprint button, but fall damage is there, and you can go full death from a fall, which I've done too. So watch your edges, watch your cliffs, but look for ladders. Sometimes they're a little hard to spot, but they will be there. So one thing to know about puzzles, and I want to keep things very vague. Some puzzles are going to be really hard to brute force. The number of like possibilities, it's not really worth trying to brute force things, key codes, stuff like that. There are going to be ways to figure stuff out. Now, you may not have the information at your current location. You may not have the information from the current level that you're at. But eventually you're probably going to come across something that clarifies things a bit more. And some things can be a much bigger puzzle, where like understanding all of the pieces to the puzzle can be maybe Reddit worthy, but more often than not. As I said, I did about 75% of the puzzles in my review without a guide, and then peeking back for a couple more things. I think the devs had a little help for us that were reviewing it on a couple things, but there's still a couple that weren't even mentioned in there. The idea is, I know there are some puzzles that I struggled with. When I found the actual clue that told me how to do it, made it very simple. So whether it's a number, whether it's a date, whether it's an order that you do certain things, whether it's a directional thing, pay attention to all of that type of stuff. You have a compass for a reason. I will say that. That's important. Paying attention to numbers that you see on anything from a book, a picture, a note, any like a sarcophagus, numbers, dates, that stuff, and the order, chronological, numerical, alphabetical. That's the way you kind of need to think about these puzzles. I'm trying to be vague, but give you a hint to say, like, there's some that are, you're just going to look at them and be like, I don't know. You could technically brute force a few, but it's not generally worth it. Because when you find whatever it is, maybe a certain investigation or a good deed lets something else happen, and then something else gets uncovered. It's usually just a combination of events that need to happen for you to uncover what it takes to solve the puzzle. So, I don't recommend brute forcing very many things. I think something that had a few options, like it was 3 different things, I brute forced 1 or 2 of those, but when it got to 4s or 6 digits, not even touching that until you know the right code. Now, if you have like certain numbers and you're like, I don't know which order, maybe. I've dabbled with a few of those, like tinkering, and that 1 or 2 of those worked. But overall, I would just say, generally, don't try to brute force too much. Pay attention to all the types of things that I said. You know, colors, numbers, directions, orders, all that type of stuff. And that's how a lot of this eventually gets solved, but where you get the information from can be any number of places. So that's why I also recommend searching pretty thoroughly if you are really trying to solve a lot of this stuff without a guide, because, you know, it's like you'll get to Akasa Marshes, you'll eventually get to the blacksmith, we'll talk about him in a minute, but when you say search your house for the first time, which there's a reason you'll do that, there are things in there that you're going to want to pay attention to that fit in a certain way, that go in a certain order, that give you some information, but then one of the pieces of information is missing, and where do you find that? It's in front of your face, but you can easily miss it as well. Again, the vagueness of my descriptions could be annoying, and I'm sorry, but part of the fun of this game is figuring stuff out. But that's kind of my vague hints at puzzles, is look around every corner, try and search for all the stuff you can, and if you see anything of a note or a description that somebody tells you, it could be even something about a good deed where somebody says, hey, I need a radio. And I honestly forgot who had asked for that. Somebody at some point will ask you for a radio. I had a radio through like my whole playthrough and I did not know who to give it to. It was something I actually eventually failed because I didn't give it to him in time. So if you do talk to somebody, there's nowhere in your investigation menu that it's going to be like, you need to give a person they're looking for a radio. I don't think it's going to give you every single piece of information like that. So if somebody asks for a specific item like, hey, I may need this specific drug, or I may need this thing, or I may need this thing, write down who asked for it and where they are at. Are they in the Akasa Marshes? Are they in the northeast corner? And maybe they're asking for a radio. I don't think that's like the right combination of things, so don't take that. But that's the idea, is that way when you do come across something, you're like, oh, I can travel back there, give this person this thing, and I can check this box. That's the way your notes are really going to help you out. So I cannot stress enough, bring a notepad. It's going to help you across the board, and probably by the time you're done, you're going to use quite a few pages of that thing, I'll be honest. But for puzzle tips that I can give you without giving anything away, hopefully that helps guide you through a few of them. Alright, so this is a good place to show normal combat. You've got multiple weapons you can switch between. You have multiple enemies, maybe you want to distract one. And that's, again, how you usually will distract the ones with the haze. But what you'll typically look for is if they will do a flash attack, it's parryable. You can block most things and just take the stamina hit. So I can just block, and I just take the stamina shot. So if you get the parry right, you can take out a posture chunk. The little guys have a single posture chunk. Now that one's kind of stuck up there on the hill, which probably works. The thing to know is, as you work these guys down, if I sit here and take a beating, beats me up a little bit, takes some damage, notice the health and the stamina go down together, which means my stamina can only go so high now. You're going to want to try and practice your dodges, which the dodges are weird. They like auto-track you unless you really time it right, but if you can get behind them, you can really do a lot of damage. What you'll notice is I do like one swing. Didn't actually mean to do that to him. I don't want to totally kill him, but if I do a single swing, I only get a little bit of that healing pulse back. And you'll notice what I've had a lot better luck with is the white health bar, or the health bar that you earn back going from gray to white, as opposed to trying to watch the little circle and ring around my body. Like, there's a little bit, and then there's the pulse, and then I can do it. But what I would rather do, more often than not, is go 1, 2... Well, if I can kill him. I want to wait for the health bar to go white. That's just a better trigger for me to watch. Same thing here with this guy. Wait for that to go white, and then steal it back. So then, what I'm typically able to do is, most of the time in a fight, it's going to be a dance back and forth. It's going to be, maybe I take a little damage, get a couple swings off, hit that right button trigger, and for me, I call it like an active reload. I think another reviewer called it like a key pulse from Neo. Basically, you're just looking for the proper timing to trigger the event. And for me, it's watching my health bar go from that gray that I've earned. When that turns into white, that's when you hit the button. Don't hit it too soon. You'd much rather honestly be a little late. If you hit it too soon, you just completely cancel the opportunity for it. But if you hit it early, or if you hit it late, you may or may not get it. But if you hit it early, you never have a shot. So that's what I'll typically do, is I'll try and get a couple swings, maybe get a dodge. If you're really going for health, it's a great time to use your drone. Get that distract, get a couple swings off, and get yourself a little health back. Especially if you're like starting a fight that might be a little dicey. But then you're like, I need something to get this going. That's one of those to where it kind of becomes the dance of like how good you are at combat. So for this guy, I can distract him first. He has no haze. So I can come back here, and this is a really good time to use like a charge attack too. So I can get a couple chunks, and now I'm back to full. Now we can go for a normal one. Now, that's one thing I do want to point out. Those guys especially, and then some of the hazes as well, when they do some of their chaining attacks, like he'll do his little like feet kick thing, those, if you get stuck in them, they hurt like crazy. And especially if you get like outgunned by a higher tier enemy, they can be a little crazy. But big one, parry, and just take the damage. See, I can just hold block and take those. That's what I really try and do, because if you can get those postured parries off, and they actually work well... Oh, I know, I want you to parry one more time. See, he's got that purple half bar. If he does one more parryable, I'll kill him if I hit him one more time, probably. See, that one I missed. Oh, takes too long sometimes. That one I hit it too early and I didn't get it. So it really is practice the combat system to understand the heal. Get the swing off. The bigger the combo, the more exponential health that you're going to get back. And then learn to watch for whatever works for you. If it's the ring around him, or if it's the gray health bar turn into white, understanding your timing of like from when your last swing is, you can almost just get a muscle memory kind of thing. Be like swing, 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 1001, hit it. It's almost like it's not that specific, but it's pretty close to that kind of timing where you really can kind of not have to think about it. And you can be like swing, swing, like in the middle of battle. I think a dodge will not totally cancel everything out either. I've used that in the middle and still been able to get the combo, so that's something you'll probably have to test and get a feel for what works for you. And the weapons are going to feel different too. Even if you go for something like the switch to the axes, they're probably going to give you a little less health back because they're quicker, but if you can hit one or two with the greatsword, you might get more health back. So pay attention to what weapon type you like using and also what works best for keeping you alive. And remember, you've got both. If you can distract one enemy, do a big giant charge with, say, your greatsword, and get 2 hits with that thing and get a big chunk of health, and then you switch over to your axes for more active combat that you got to be on your toes for, that can work. Don't forget about both of your weapons, because also they have their own limbic energy. Like if I use my limbic energy for a charge attack here, and that one hits like a truck, notice that bar is down, but if I switch over to the axes, they're full. And then I've got my own charge up here. And the difference is, once you start equipping glyphs that you're eventually going to get, these type of glyphs on your weapons where you jump backwards and, it's like whatever this one does, you'll be able to use the glyphs on 2 different weapons, and you'll just have a lot more variety to your build. So that's the basics of combat. That's like switching your weapons, paying attention to the limbic energy, the parries, the dodges. I'm going to show you the Haze combat now to show you a couple other things, but I think that's the basics, and I'm going to show you like the Haze combo, distraction, and drone abilities too. So now for combat, what I want to do is show you what combat is like against an enemy that has a Haze and explain a couple of the pieces to it. So one, when you get up to them, you'll see that their face is no longer fully just like that black void, same as the stomach. You're going to see they're going to have some type of color kind of brewing or bubbling up just under the surface. And this one's going to be that kind of yellowish color. This is going to be ecstasy. There are 4 types. Red is rage. It's the first one you see, even in the big cinematic. And that is going to be sharper, screaming at you. Red is rage. Yellow's ecstasy, going to be a little weirder, kind of all over the place. Blue is grief, which is always a little weird one to fight, and then green is going to be terror. There's not really like any fear effects, but that's the gist. Typically what you'll do on almost every one of these, a lot of the Haze type enemies, you'll fight them solo. When you get multiple pairs, that's where you got to play a little bit of a game of cat and mouse and dance around and kite some enemies. But if it's just one, typically what you'll do is, while the Haze is alive and external, like attached by the cable but not inside them, you can't actually damage the Hollow Walker, which is the kind of black and white ones. So you got to damage the Haze, take its health bar all the way down to 0. It kind of travels back into the Hollow Walker. That's when you need to do as much damage to the Hollow Walker as possible. So it's actually beneficial to save bigger chunks for like the Hollow Walkers if you want to try and finish them fast, because most of the time you're going to distract to the Hollow Walker with your drone. So you're going to bring your drone out, or just use the R button, and for me is B, just use the distractibility. And then when you do that, like right as soon as the Haze is coming out, the Hollow Walker won't be beating you up as well, so you can focus on one while the other is distracted. If you don't kill the Hollow Walker fast enough, that Haze will pop out again and the Hollow Walker is going to be invulnerable. Now, you also notice that middle kind of white bar of limbic energy. What you can do is, depending on while you're fighting the, if you're up for it, and maybe distract isn't there, but if you can get damage on the Hollow Walker while the Haze is out, you can lower that limbic energy really low, and what'll actually happen is sometimes when the Haze will actually kind of come back in, if that white energy is low enough, you'll actually get them to that kind of full stun status and be able to finish them. Sometimes it's like a little more easy early on. The tier 2 and tier 3 enemies, they get to be a little different for sure, but that white bar is a little hard to trigger, and it's not posture, it's that limbic energy in the middle. But while that is kind of in that dashed form that it is, you're not going to do much damage to them if the haze is external. But if it comes back, you'll see that can actually be stunned. I'm going to try and demo what I can here. If I don't show it all, I at least wanted to kind of explain it. When I come up, he's going to notice me, and we're going to go for the distract, which is usually pretty early. So now it's me and the haze. Now, if I can get a good block on the white ones, those are going to be like the parryable things that they'll do. And I'm going to break the distraction because I hit him, but I'm also lowering that energy down. Now, I can't kill him yet, but that energy is very low. So if I can lower the haze's health down... I'm actually exhausted right now, which is bad. Now, you'll notice his health is getting lower, but if I can actually lower this guy's white bar lower, he won't die. But now if I get the kill off, he's actually in that really stunnable state, and you can do a full finish. So if you've got one of each, also as you use your weapons, they'll level up. May as well just show you that there. And that means your actual combos are going to do more damage. Twin axes obviously hit a little faster. Pole arms, great swords, the numbers go up a little quicker. But that's the gist, is like the Hollow Walker is going to have the limbic energy. That's that white bar between their posture and their health. The haze is just going to have its health and then posture. When the haze flashes kind of white, that's going to be a parryable attack. Get that, you know, closely timed. It's somewhat forgiving on like Liza P or Kazan. It's not that crazy, but a somewhat forgiving parry. If you can get that parry off, that's going to take one, you know, a chunk of their posture. If you do that twice, you can do a finishing move on the haze as well. But you notice if you can whittle down the white energy on the Hollow Walker and not get yourself killed while the haze is also doing stuff too, depending on how far apart they are, if you can run up to one or run by, however it works. If you can get that white bar down, usually I didn't do that, but it's just another thing that you can do. If you just distract the Hollow Walker, kill the haze, and then go over and wail on the Hollow Walker once the haze is down, kill one, then kill the other, you can be fine. But that's just some of the more of the mechanics of how the haze Hollow Walker combination can work. They'll drop shards, but any ones with the hazes will drop shards of that type, and that's what you're going to use when it comes to leveling up your weapons, because once you choose a damage type like Ecstasy or Rage, you have to use those specific shards as well. So killing all the haze type enemies you can is going to be beneficial for your freedom, so you can unlock or you can upgrade more and more gear. Alright, so I want to mention this. You'll notice the sound is pretty much just music and the chimes. I can get away from the chimes so it's a little less obvious. There are certain enemies called Timeloop Enemies, and you'll see the time loops eventually when you go exploring. The Timeloop Enemies all have to be taken out within a zone, like a whole explorable zone, for you to actually be able to enter a time loop and do what you need to do with that. The audio cue that you're going to look for, and again, keeping your ears open, the audio cue you're going to look for is what this guy has. So you hear this, it almost sounds like a train car on train tracks, but it kind of sounds a little bit electronic-y. That's kind of what you're listening and looking for, is that sound. And you'll know and it will say Time Loop Guardian is killed. You'll see the black little pieces fly off into the world. That's actually the direction of the time loop. That's a small hint for you too. There's something else later that will help you track the time loops down and things like that, but time loop enemies are tied to those weird spiky looking animated spheres, but you need to kill all of those type of enemies in a region. And early on, it's just going to be exploration. Later on, you can kind of get a little bit of guidance to what those are. But if you hear that weird sound, that is the time loop related sound. It's kind of specific. Just wanted you to have an example of what it was. So let's talk about your save points and your death penalty. Normally, there is no death penalty. If I've gone exploring this middle section, taken out some enemies, and even if I die, if this is the last place I saved, I'm just going to respawn right here, and the enemies that I had killed will stay dead. Everything I picked up will still be mine. You also notice you can hold down up, at least on the D-pad, and that's going to allow me to travel back to the APC. And if you're going to travel to a different zone, it's a quick way to do it. If you know where there's a, save point, run to that, travel to your APC, head to a different zone. Doesn't take overly long unless you're like buried in the catacombs somewhere, but eventually even somewhere in those, you're likely to find a save point. And, you know, if you go really deep down in some crypt or catacomb somewhere and you're like, okay, I can't do what I need to do right down here right now, but there's a save point close by, travel all the way back out, and, you know, that might save you some time. But the thing to know is in the settings, what you're going to have down here is a death penalty. Depending on your difficulty, you've got, you know, lenient if you're going more for a story run. Balance is pretty standard. Merciless is what I'm playing on in this run just to see how it is, but I beat the whole game, so I'm pretty comfortable. Death penalty. I never turn this on. It is totally up to you. It's your call. I just want you to know it's here. I think it gives you an option to turn it off or on when you start your game, but basically when the player is defeated, all enemies killed since the last save point, basically if I ran around, did some stuff and hadn't saved, and then died, the enemies will be reset, along with the XP that you get on your weapons, and also the shards that you got from the enemies. All of that would be reset. The focus for me in the game was mostly more on the puzzles, figuring everything out, and then the exploration part, not refighting enemies every time. And sometimes if you fall off an edge, that's not a great death to have to refight things through. I left it off, but the option is there for you to turn it on. Totally up to you anytime you want to. Wanted to show you it's there, but more often than not, when you die, basically your save points are more often than not just going to be your respawn point. You might have to run back where you were, but the enemies you killed will stay dead, and everything you've got will stay with you. So not like souls that you've got to pick up or anything. So definitely not a Souls-like, as I said, and also not an RPG with stats, but the save points without the death penalty or with the death penalty off are basically that. Alright, so before I jump over to the spoiler stuff with a couple of the early pieces of gear that are worthwhile to get, let's talk about the blacksmith. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to find him, unlock him, or get him. I'm not going to tell you much, but I do want to go through what he has in his inventory and why it's important. So once you talk to him and get him back here and kind of work through his discussions, you'll unlock crafting. So you've got the ability to upgrade your weapon, upgrade your defensive gear. The weaving limbic consumable is very simple. The limbic capacitor just restores your limbic energy. You can craft those if you just want to. Look how it's not hard to craft them. I just didn't honestly have to use them very often. You've got a limbic battery, which is just a regeneration for your limbic energy over time. And then you've got the limbic spheres as a damage protection. So if you see a hollow walker with like a red haze, maybe it's like an elite version of an enemy, it might be, you know, advantageous to pop one of these and have reduced damage. I didn't really use these either because, again, on normal difficulty, combat was a bit more manageable once I got used to it. There were a couple tough spots, though, where I used a couple, like, healing kits and stuff like that, but this may have been just as effective. So don't forget that these exist. You'll find them randomly, too, in the world. I don't think I ever crafted these, and I still had plenty left over. So if you explore and find a bunch of stuff, you'll pick these up, but that's what those are. Study, you're eventually going to find some books that allow you to upgrade things further. You'll find books that lets you take weapons from 4 to 5. You can find a book, I think, that will let you take gear for defensive gear from 2 to 3. I don't think it's more than that. I think it was 3 different books, but that's where you'll turn those in. Then we have glyphs. Before I actually show you, like, upgrading a weapon, upgrading gear is simple. You'll notice, if I preview it, if I spin the 15 regular shards, small, and if I spin the 35 ecstasy shards, small, I can upgrade this thing to grade 2. Now, what you'll notice is, if I upgrade this one, and I upgrade this one, I'm actually able to take my endurance, which is your health and your stamina, but it is your health pool, and if I upgrade both of these, I'm going to take my starting health, like these are the 2 pieces I tell you to go find in the video, like the other 2 clips. I'm going to tell you where this is at, and I'm going to tell you where this is at. This one I found out here in the marshes. If you can get 2 more pieces of gear, you're going to start with 4,000 endurance, and if you can get up to 6,000 this early in the game, which is like 3 hours in, basically just running around and talking to chat and everything, 2 to 3 hours in, you can have like 6,000 potential endurance, 50% more than what you started. That is a really big leap forward in your survivability when you start taking on harder and harder stuff. So that's why I want to show you where those 2 pieces of defensive gear are, just to make your beginning a little bit more manageable. But then also the upgrades here, if you've got the shards to do it, can be a good idea. Depending on which direction you want to upgrade your weapon, though, you might not upgrade a certain class because you might not have the shards to do it. Like, I'll explain this here in a second, but if I want to take this up to Terror, normal, I can take it up to level 2, but if I want to take it to level 3, then I'm going to need Terror Shards. And I can tell you, being as this is 75 neutral, I don't think I've got enough Terror Shards to do both my defensive gear and the weapon, so we'll go through that in a second. But imbuing defensive gear levels it up, but again, leveling up your defensive gear makes you have more health, so do not sleep on the defensive upgrades. Do those when you can with what you've got equipped. Makes you much more survivable. So let's talk about glyphs before we talk about upgrading weapons. Neutral glyphs you can use on any weapon, because when you go to upgrade a weapon, you have to pick a damage type. When you pick that damage type, it is locked in on that weapon. Now, when you lock it on that weapon, it's going to be Terror from level 4 all the way up to level 20 when you max it out. But you'll notice I have multiple copies. You're also going to find random weapons that are just like a Lymbic, just like a polearm of Grief or a polearm of Terror. You might just find one down the road. It might be at a higher level, it might be less upgraded, but you can find variations too. So don't think like if I make this one Terror, it's the only polearm I'm ever going to have. You're going to see more. Just know that you're going to be sticking with that one for a little while. There's no drawback to it, generally, outside of what glyphs you can use. Neutral can go on any weapon, though. That's the nice thing. As soon as you upgrade it to level 2, you should pick one. You shouldn't just sit on it because you want to upgrade so you have more upgrade potential, and you can also start using glyphs. Neutral glyphs are going to go in any of them. So you can use these no matter what they're nice. This is going to basically make you a shield. This is just going to heal you from your limbic energy. All you do is like siphon your limbic energy, get some health back. It's really actually quite nice. Just kind of a heal on the go, and how do you get limbic energy? Just use your weapon and build it back up as you fight. So you can have heals just like this that you can use between fights really easily. You've got a blast that stuns any enemies, so you've got a cone to stun stuff in front of you. You can shoot multiple projection shards, and you can also guard stamina, so like the enemy's purple, their posture bar, you can actually knock a chunk off of those too. Actually, that's what the different one, but again, this one, reducing endurance cost when blocking, that's what this one does. So if you're blocking some tough hits, you're taking less endurance loss, therefore you can block more, last 45 seconds. This is like an early one you find, not a bad one to have on, but those can go anywhere. The main idea is you've got Rage, Grief, Terror, and Ecstasy. When you pick your first weapon, remember you can equip 2, so it's really your first 2 weapons that you pick. One of them should be Rage, whether it's your main or your alternate. The main reason is, one of the first glyphs that you're going to find and get is going to be this one, the Rage Spike. Early on, does some damage, later on, does a massive chunk of damage, and it also does a small bit of AoE, which is really nice too. There are some enemies that are really hard to get to, and they might be a full path around that you might get to. If you have the Rage Spike on, say, your alternate weapon, and you can just unload 3 or 4 Rage Spikes into an enemy that's far away, you could potentially take them out completely, not even have to get that near them, and then whatever path or traversal you might be able to do might be much, much easier. There are some enemies that just want to smack on you at range and they're really hard to get to, and this is just one of those things that you should probably have on you. So I would recommend, if not your main, at a minimum, make this your alternate, and I kind of would recommend it as an alternate, because your other options are going to be, you know, enter a state of Rageful Defiance. You can't get knocked down, so you can just do damage without getting knocked down, but you might take some damage. Pure Hatred infested with Lasso pulls enemies to you so you can smack them around a bit. You've got Hateful Force, Strikes Limbic Generation, and basically you send damage through everything attached, which is not a bad way to go, but that's very circumstantial. And then you've got a wave of energy that erupts in front of you. Again, kind of a ranged attack, but on like a ground wave. This is the one airborne strike in almost this whole thing. Very specific, very directional, and it's one of those things that I highly recommend having. So if your alternate weapon is this, you can empty your limbic energy to cast as many of these as you can try to take out an enemy. Very, very beneficial. So I recommend this for an alternate, personally. Now, Grief, I don't love these attacks personally. Now, maybe they got tweaked or they'll get balanced later when you see this. I don't know. This one is like a pool of sorrow around you, just as damage over time. This one is, I think, a void in front of you that you can collapse for some damage. This one hurts you, which I really would not recommend for anybody early on. And this one kind of is a blast around you as a pushback radius. And then this one is going to be a cone in front of you that does damage. This thing felt really weak. I don't know if I was using a level 1 against like level 3 enemies. This thing just did not ever feel that strong. I don't recommend growing Grief. Feel free to experiment when you get a Grief weapon, though. That's when I would probably wait for that one. For Ecstasy, I did this on my polearm first, and it's not bad, but it's not my favorite. So this is stance damage. So this would be that posture damage, that purple bar. This is the one that actually does that. So this is okay. The energy around you is just a blast radius, so this is like an area of effect. This one's going to be a stun duration in an area of effect. These aren't bad. Like, Ecstasy is not a bad way to go, but I would actually recommend trying Terror. Just in the early exploration, I found these already. So this is a pool of terror around me, and then you can choose to activate it when you want to. So if you get surrounded, you can hit this activation, get a big chunk of damage, and it's set and trigger it. And it could be something where you have a bunch of enemies coming like down a narrow bridge towards you. You set it up, and then when you trigger it, then you can blast them that way too. It has some nice benefits. It's a controlled trigger if you want it. It's kind of a nice one to have. You also eventually, if you go Terror, you're going to have the ability to drain health from an enemy. Kind of huge. So when you find, and when and if you find that one, also very beneficial to have for healing outside of the neutral healing. You've also got Recoil. This is actually like a jump back. The 15 meter one is a little terrifying because I used this late game in my other playthrough. You go really far. 15 meters is a long way. Like, I'm surprised they didn't leap off a cliff. But 5 meters is just kind of like, this situation's going downhill really fast. A quick back out. It is quick. And then you can maybe save yourself, run away, not die. Especially if you're turned with death penalties on, this could be huge. So don't sleep on Terror. I think what I would probably do is whatever weapon type you like, do one of them as Terror, because I've got a couple options here to pick from. And I think I kind of like the potential with healing, the area of effect trigger trap that you've got. You've got a beam that you can use, the kind of get out of jail or get out of bad situation jump, and then have an alternate be Rage, because the spike alone is just the one thing you could probably put on there and still be in good shape. So the way this would work is you're going to go upgrade weapon. If I want my pole arm to be Terror, first time I'm just going to pick Terror, and it's still just going to cost neutral shards. I'm just picking the Limbic Sphere for this pole arm. Notice it's going to allow my grade to go up to level 2, and it's also going to allow my level max to now be at level 8. So if I do this, I'm going to hold down, level it up.
Better than you.
Pole arm of Terror, confirmed. Now, if I want to take this thing to level 3, I technically can still do that, because I've got 58 of these Terror shards. But remember, my defensive gear is also Terror. Two of them are, but one of them that I've got equipped is. You'll find other defensive gear, so, give or take when you do what. But if I wanted to take this to level 3 to unlock the potential, I could, which would allow me to level it all the way up to 12. So if I use this thing for a while, I just don't have to worry about it. But if you wanted to upgrade if you're kind of having to struggle a bit more surviving, watch which shards you spend. And then you can kind of back out here, the defensive gear. So if I want to upgrade the Ecstasy, I've got plenty. I've got 176, so I can upgrade the defensive gear.
Taoist would be proud.
That one's level 2. And then if I want to upgrade the other one that I've got, then that one's going to cost 35. So I'm only going to be able to do the weapon or the defensive gear early, and then when you find more, come back and upgrade. It's not too hard to get to them, because when you drive to a different zone with the APC and you come back to the marshes with the APC later, you always come back right here to the blacksmith every time, so it's a very short walk. It's not hard to fast travel, upgrade gear, and then fast travel back where you were. Again, nice quality life choice there. I appreciate that. So if I wanted to take this up higher, I could, but maybe I want to make a regular sword. I want to make this one Rage.
Here.
So I've got that, and then now I've got the Sword of Rage. I've got enough, and I have no defensive gear in the way. I can take this one all the way up to level 3. Now, notice it's not available anymore. He can't take things up to level grade 4 until I find the book for that. But if you have like 12 levels worth of upgrades to work through on a weapon, that's going to last you for a while, because it's a cap of 20, and you've got a long ways to go in the game. But at least with this one, I know I've got a potential upgrade. If I want to upgrade the defensive gear for more survivability, I could do that. It's going to give me more health that I can work with. Not a bad way to go, honestly, but if you prefer the weapon and you just want to have that thing and you're doing good with surviving, you just want to do more damage, go with the damage route. But once you've upgraded your gear, now you just kind of pop into, yep, there's the Glyphs menu. That's the tutorials. I do recommend turning tutorials on your first time through. Makes things a lot easier. Come in here, add Glyphs with X, and just kind of come up here to the top. So I've got my Frightful Ambush, and I've got my Recoil. So if my Recoil I want up top, and then if I want this to be my pool on the ground, and then I've still got my neutral one. So if I want Perfect Guard, I can have my primary maxed out with 3 different ones. But remember, I've also got potentially my Sword of Rage. If I want this glyph on here now, I can either go neutral, but only one can have it equipped. See how it says equipped Polearm of Terror? You can only use a glyph on a single weapon. It can't be equipped on both. So I can't put this on both, but no big deal. Mainly, I just want this sword to have the potential to do the rage spike when I want it to. And that's the cool thing, is if I come back out here, I've got my pole arm. It's very green now, you can see that. And you can even see, this is your jump back. That's your teleport. It's not big, but it's enough to maybe throw things off, stun what you've got, run away, save yourself. And then as for the ability for the ground damage, so I've got my A button. You've got that thing sitting there waiting, and then when I go to trigger it, that's the full damage hit. Then you'll notice my limbic energy up top is about half done, but maybe I come up to a ranged enemy that I want to take out, switch weapons, and at this point, now I can do these range spikes, and I can do what I need to do from range with them. If those two are like tied together, or maybe I want to get some damage off first, I can come out here and go for my range spike. And rarely, but thanks to that ability, I didn't even have to fight the Haze. So that all worked out. I actually just got 19 tears, so maybe I could do both upgrades now. I don't know what the math is, but I might be closer than I think. But that's the difference. Changes the shape of the weapon, changes the glyphs that you can use. You can switch back and forth. You've got limbic energy on both. And your upgrades for your defensive gear and your weapons really are going to make your own build, unless there's just like a YouTube wiki that makes like the perfect build or whatever it is. And then same thing with the drone abilities. You're going to find different levels of drone abilities. Like you're going to find the bull rush, you're going to find multiple levels to it. The whirlwind I just wish was stronger. I just feel like it's weak. But again, distract, you're going to use this more than anything else, but just get comfortable, tinker with all that stuff. And I think that covers most of the tips that I wanted to. So now again is the spoiler warning. Now we're back here with Remy standing in front of Akasa Marshes, and this is the spoiler warning. In here I'm going to cover a good deed. There's an item that you're going to find in the first zone. I'm going to show you who you are going to give that to, because it's not totally clear if you're just kind of skimming through all the text. But as it is a good deed that you can accomplish, I'm still not telling you what the good deeds do. You'll have to figure that out on your own. The other two pieces, which are a little bit longer, are going to be actual guidance of how to find a couple pieces of defensive gear. And one's a walkthrough, one is like as you're exploring kind of the catacombs in the first area, where it's at, just so you don't miss it. So spoiler warning aside, this is actual like solving a couple very early things, so let's get to it. So early on in your roaming around, you're going to have things that are kind of available. You've got good deeds. The Golden Watch is one of them. And this is one of the first ones. It's basically giving aid to all the civilians for any number of reasons. Now, when you explore kind of the area of the trenches right outside the kind of catacomb bunker thing, you're going to pick up and there's a note that says, hey, I found, these three brothers and one of them had this watch. Well, if you actually take the watch back to the dad, you need to use the trade, and this is for any of these kind of giving an item to a person situation. This is just an example. If you trade, then you can actually kind of accomplish the good deed, same way you gave the med kit. And sometimes I'm not entirely sure who needs what item. I've had like 6 items in my inventory before and just like tried all of them. And occasionally some of the random ones have worked. That's how I solved some of them almost on accident. But I've only got one thing here. This is on the back of Otis. Otis is his son. So simple, done, but accomplishing a good deed is something you're going to want to do. Not going to spoil the reason for it, but good deeds are also something that are going to kind of make your journey a bit more full and let you have more opportunities for certain things. Again, being very vague about a lot of this stuff, but there's a reason for that. I just don't want to spoil anything. But yeah, the more good deeds you do, the better off you're going to be as well when you figure out what they're for. Some can be between zones, by the way. I may have to go 2 zones forward, find something, bring it back to a certain place. I've had to do that. So if you kind of start getting this mental picture of these things in your mind, or making notes, or checking your good deeds, or all of these things, it's kind of good when you pick up any item that might have any materialistic value to somebody else. Kind of make a note of what it is, where you got it, anything that was mentioned about it. Be like, hey, I got a gold watch. Like, okay, I got a gold watch. Who is it for? The note on the watch actually said for Otis, so that one was a little bit more clear. But as you're kind of rummaging around, there's a whole lot more to just try and remember, and things get lost in the mix of all the details. So if you make a little note and say, I found a watch, mentioned Otis. Who's Otis? Maybe I don't remember right now, but maybe it'll come to me later on. So that's just kind of a gist of a good deed, so you kind of know what that's all about. I'm off to a different zone, so we'll do a little bit more tips and discovery in that area. Alright, so at this point in the video, what I want to do is I'm in Sendera Forest. Right now, I'm literally at the very beginning, so if you're watching this towards the beginning to kind of understand what you're getting into, what I want to do is show where 2 puzzles are in this very early section that will give you a bit of defensive gear that is going to make survival a bit easier just from the start. That's it. You can completely skip these 2 parts of the video, but there are just 2 pieces of gear in here, a little bit of just information I want to share with you, so you've got it from the go. So right now, I'm actually early enough where I just walked up to the APC. The guy is looking for me to ask for, he's basically trying to get me to go get the med kit for him, and I need to go up this path into the trees to get the med kit. But before you do, what you should do, come over here, follow this tree over here to the left, and you're going to find this little marker over here. There's a colored pile of stones, and you can even use this as kind of a trigger. If you want to go hunt in the mountains for the rest, you can, but I will show you all of it. So you're going to gather this. You dummies, you won't ever find where I hid the key, you're all too stupid. And it's like somebody playing a joke on, you know, the Cattle Hill farm. You've got Arlo and Atticus, and it's the boys, it's the brothers. This is what we're talking about. So now you get equipable items that you can actually equip. And you'll notice if you actually check your loadout, come down here, I've actually got a note that I can look at if I want to. But I have a pile of yellow stones. So from here, there are 2 other piles of stones. So if you want to skip ahead, timestamp, just to give you a kind of precursor of where the next thing is, you can. But I'm going to run up in the hills and I have to get him the med kit. While you're up in the hills getting the med kit, you may as well do this at the same time. That is why I'm showing you. So if you come up here, this is just running up in the trees, following the light, and you'll see the trees are marked. They say, hey, the trees are marked, and you need to go find a med kit up in here. So that's a big X on a tree. We're going to run up this direction. And what you'll notice is, like, you've got a tree marked right there, and they do a pretty good job of making these pretty obvious to glare at you. There's a pile of blue stones up there. That's the last pile you get to. You actually have to get to a pile of stones of another color first. So if we run up this direction, you can mosey around in the woods if you want to. Not too much over here. But here we've actually got a yellow pile as well. So this is another note. Even if you blockheads find the key, I bet you'll never find the treasure chest. The blue paint is harder to see than the red. So you need a red and you need blue. We saw the blue. And if we come over here and explore a little bit farther. So you got a tree marked with another X. And you've got the actual, like, little base up there that we would go to. Keep hanging to the left. It's just kind of the way I know to run the outer rim of this area. And that way you know you're not going to miss what I'm looking for. But here's another X to follow. And then when you get up here, you're going to have a couple different directions where you can go. So you can follow the X, and that's going to kind of take you over to the actual camp. But what you want to do is when you get to this tree, like if you see this pile of barrels, go left and not that little like blocked off area. Go uphill go up here, up top of the hill in the woods. And here is where you're going to find your key. Old rusted key. And this is just a good introduction as well for the puzzles. So you can see the key has a very specific shape to it. It'll have a little symbol on it. There are going to be a lot of keys, so keeping them square, where you find them, what they're for, is actually going to be beneficial. I really do recommend a notepad. I started to use a notepad a little, like, partway through my journey. I started making notes on my computer for a guide. Like, I've got a lot of notes now, depending on what you need. Like, you may not need to write down every single passcode like I did, but it doesn't hurt to keep everything square. Not really much else out here in the woods, I will say. Not really any big, like, secrets that you can find tucked out here. But you are going to need the medkit for the soldier. So if you came up here and found that already, obviously you found this, which is going to be the OMSIF medkit. So you saw that was a different color. Yellow is going to be typically an item that you need. White, vial of an unknown substance. Typically, like, you've got research items like that, miscellaneous items, give you reports of what's going on. You can see the profile of the site. You can see that it's 1,056 years based on resident topology signature. 1,000 years old. These areas are partially ancient, so it gives you an idea into that. And then when you come here, you'll notice there's a little ledge you can jump off. Jump off here, and then just head up this trail. You could head back down to the APC and move on and completely skip this. I think you can actually get to it over here as well. Just a little harder to go through the trees. And then here's the little ledge you actually have to jump off to get to the bluestones. If you come down here to the bluestones, you're going to see there's a lock, basic chest, key. I tried my keys on a whole bunch of locks, and you probably will. Behold the magnificent treasure of the cattle farm. It belonged to our great-great-great-great-grandpa. Don't break it. You actually get your first piece of defensive gear. And you'll actually see that the mystery has been solved. So if you go, this will actually be a good way to show you multiple things. Come in here, make sure you equip your defensive gear. It's grade 1. You actually can upgrade these as you go. You'll see a little bit of damage absorption. I've got more defensive gear, actually. So I've got 500 more endurance from the defensive gear. So now that's a little boosted. And I've also got stamina cost reduction of 40%. When I'm very wounded, stamina cost is reduced, which, very good thing. Come over here. Now if I come back to all my investigations, you can see that I've got the med kit, which is going to be for the investigation. That's for the soldier. You can see I've got a couple of miscellaneous things. And one of the things you can do as well, I'll probably cover that a little bit later. You've got your research items. That'll come into play later. And you've got your miscellaneous notes and just information about the world. And then over here, I've actually got a cap. Currently what I've got equipped on, so you can see your cosmetics. Then if you come over to exploration, you'll see good deeds that you can do, and you'll see mysteries, curious enigmas, and ancient puzzles scattered throughout Hadia. And it kind of shows up, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more to solve in this zone alone. And plenty of them you're not going to get to early on. You'll see time loops as well, those are covered later. So, that is how you get the first key, just a little bit of the basics. Now let me show you how to get your other piece of defensive gear in Sindera Forest before you get going too far. So this is the second piece of a little bit of spoiler, not much, I just don't want you to miss these pieces of gear. When you're in the kind of first little catacomb area that you talk to the guy, give him the med kit, and then he gives you the key, or the kind of the latch so you can go up and do the puzzle, and then the door opens. When you go inside that area, you'll be working through kind of doing your first puzzle, and you'll get to this room. Multi-level room. You'll have a ladder on the wall over here so you can climb up. When you get to the top floor, you will have an enemy up here, but there's also a piece of gear in one of the prison cells you don't want to miss, because it's the other one of your early piece of defensive gear. So come up, go over here to the left. And the door you're looking for is going to be on this opposite side. So for point of reference, you've got kind of the blue lights over there, and you've obviously got the door that you can see with the little sheen on it, like, hey, here's a door you can open. Opposite that, come over here and you're looking for the open prison cell. So I'm truly like opposite the door that we'd open. And like one or two cells over here to the right, you'll find this little green thing on this chest. And you're actually going to get a bracer. Oh, sorry, controller disconnected. Sorry about that. And the bracer, again, level 1, but if you put these two together just as an initial loadout, you're going to be way better off than you would before. So now you've got a total of 5,000 endurance. Endurance is your max health and max stamina. We'll cover kind of how all those work. But you've also got protection. You've got damage absorption 5% for this one, and damage absorption another 5%. So you've got 10% damage absorption now. You've also got remaining undamaged will reduce the damage you take. So the longer you don't take damage, less you'll take. These are just some really early initial survival pieces of gear. Putting them together, you are 25% more health just from these two things from the get-go. Just a nice way to get you going. Hopefully these aren't too much spoilers, but that's why I tucked them here at the end of the video. If you are worried about seeing me solve any puzzles, check out now. Thank you for watching. Hit the subscribe button. Share it with anybody who might enjoy the video. All that's totally fine. But if you want to see early guidance on how to get those first 2 defensive relics, or maybe you wander Sindera Forest and you don't find them, you're like, I looked, I didn't see them, let me check. I recommend picking those 2 up so you've got that like boosted health bar to start. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like below. As I said, subscribe to see more from me on this. If you want to see more, but we've got so many games coming out. I've got a lot of coverage coming, and we're back in both YouTube and streaming, so find me on Twitch as well. But now if you're looking forward to a little bit of light spoiler early content, here we go.